Hey, everybody. It's been a week since I was banned by the Thought Police for discussing things that you're not allowed to discuss, I guess, on YouTube. You know who is in charge by who you can't talk about, right, guys? But I'm really, really happy to see that I have a nice audience coming in tonight. And I want to thank everybody for showing up. Thanks a lot for showing up, Jeff and Jody. And I've got a special guest, Tony Castelli, tonight. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about in an unbiased way. We're a friend of mine, a dear friend I've known since 2012, Anthony Castelli, trial attorney. We're going to talk about Kamala Harris and her horrible record on treatment of criminal defendants and violating the exculpatory evidence rules under Brady. And we're going to go through some reaction videos, and Tony's going to help me decipher everything. We're going to go through a LA Superior Court transcript in order by a judge, basically condemning Kamala for what she did to criminal defendants. And as you guys know, I'm a nonpartisan, and I've done videos about Donald Trump, about how he wants to extend qualified immunity to police officers, which I think is a terrible idea. But I've also pointed out that a president has no authority to extend qualified immunity to officers on a state level, because we have things like the 10th Amendment and whatnot, 9th Amendment, all these things like that. So what I'm going to do really quick, guys. By the way, thank you, everybody, for showing up. Thank you, Age Go. Right on, brother. Thank you. What's the matter, you? It's good seeing you. Jody Shiloh and Jeff and all my regulars. Give me a bunch of OCTAFs, and pretty soon I'm going to introduce you guys to my friend Tony. But I want to do my traditional kickoff for the show, and then we'll get a little crazy. We're going to have a good time tonight, guys. This is a really good show, good presentation. I'm hoping that everybody will stick around for a while and tell your friends and family members. This is going to be a good show, a no-miss kind of show. Here we go. Another edition of Ask Michael Ehline. This is where I teach people the law in an unorthodox manner by using examples that we see in the news, case law briefs, but it's all about exposing the Leviathan and its instrumentalities and taking back your rights. Know the law and mean to keep it well. Come here to learn from an expert to know your right. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the Thought Police are going to take down this channel. That's right. We never know when the Thought Police are going to take down this channel. And as you guys know, I spoke about a guy, he was part of WikiLeaks last week, and a couple of other things. The guy who has the license to the IBM computers, and the Thought Police didn't like that. And I was banned for 7 days. So I've been looking at other options like Patreon and Rumble. Chili de Castro says my audience isn't big enough yet. So I basically have to censor myself and not say the things that I really want to say that I should be able to say in a free world, in violation of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. Unfortunately, these people have so much control over our lives that they basically found a way to silence us. So I have to be very careful what I say, but I am going to be careful with what I say today. And I want to introduce to you my friend, my dear friend, Tony Castelli, who is a trial lawyer. And
Hi, Mike.
Tony, yeah, you've done about, what, 30 or 40 trials, I guess?
I have over the course of my long career. Very long.
Okay. So guys, I just really quick, I want to tell you. So Tony has accused me of being right of Attila the Hun. And Tony's always been, to me, I always thought was far left, but he considers himself to be a centrist. And I know that he doesn't vote based on the ticket. He votes based on the issues. And so Tony wanted me to point out this horrible thing with the Brady Law that went down with Camel Toe, and to go into what happened. And I was like, I don't know if my audience is going to want to watch this, man. But he convinced me. And I think that actually after doing this with him and going through the material, I think he's spot on. This is really, really important for you guys to know, because we know that the legacy media is the enemy of the American people, and they are 100% supporting her and absolutely trashing the other candidate whenever they get a chance. You see the Google search results, they bury anything that's positive about Orange Man, and anything that's untrue about this other one seems to be popping up on the front page. So really quick here, looks like Tony disappeared for a second, so I'm gonna
back. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So forgive me, guys. This is kind of a new thing. What I'm trying to do is bring on guests to interview them who are experts in their field. And since Tony has far more experience than I do as a trial lawyer, I think it's a really good idea. So really quick in the sidebar. What's the matter? You's laughing about Camel Toe. We'll put that up there.
What's the matter, you?
What's the matter, you? And hey, look, doesn't Tony kind of look like a mafioso, right?
How do you?
Hey, what are you doing
My
over
favorite
there?
client, favorite guy on your whole podcast, Mike. What's the matter, you?
Yeah. Oh, look, and Rhonda Gibson. Thanks, Rhonda Gibson. And by the way, guys, if you want to support the channel, feel free to throw some super chats at me. I'll make sure that your comments go to the front of the line as always. It's not expected, but it's greatly appreciated because my wife does not like it that I spend so much time doing this stuff. So, Tony, tell us a little bit about you and about how we met, and then we'll get into the show.
Well, I have been a practicing attorney for over 40 years. I primarily worked for a personal injury firm my whole career and had about 30 civil trials. And I also, when I started out practicing law, it's very rare that you get in the courtroom on a civil case. So I started taking public defender cases. And I'd walk up to the public defender's office. They'd give me 3 cases a month. And I had attempted murder trial, 2 police officers, a rape trial. Criminal, I knew enough where I knew when I was over my head. But it worked well. And I would say I'm a little bit more of a civil lawyer than criminal, but I did have some good experience with criminal, and the issue that we're going to talk about today with Michael, I know pretty well. And I met Mike back in the what I call the internet now. I don't know what's going on with it, but back when I first met Michael, and this is probably 15 years ago, I was Googling, I built a website and was Googling Cincinnati personal injury attorney. Mike Ehline out of California came up, and he called me out of the blue one day and say, "Hey, I think I can help you and with your website." And we started this group, and we went strong for 3 or 4 years. And man, Mike, I always really appreciate, because Mike would get up at his time, like 4 a.m, and teach us for an hour and a half. And at one point in time, we had our pictures up on Google. We were page 1, number 1, and it was very exciting. We had some Vegas conferences. We had SEO people. So that was really our we got to meet, and we've stayed close ever since. Though we still don't have the Circle of Legal Trust is what it was called. Cold. It was very cool. It was very.
We still have it. It just kind of died because Google really changed a lot, Tony. Now it used to be about getting backlinks, and now they're if you don't have a link from CNN or PMSNBC, they don't really rank your site that high. So it changed.
Well, and the other thing, Mike, is, and I know when you talk about this on your podcast here, that you're trying to get the people that watch your show to think a little bit critically, like you do as a lawyer, yes. to say, okay, is this good evidence? Is this, on the internet anymore, you really got to dig. And now we got the artificial intelligence. I'm actually doing a mock trial advisor, and the kid made an AI of one of the teachers drunk. So, you got to really dig to figure out what is the truth. And I got a little piece of gold here on Miss Harris. Now, Mike, you kind of give yourself away when you pronounce her name.
Oh, sorry, I won't call Camel Toe anymore.
Well, I mean, it's Kamala. I think it's Kamala. But I'm here to tell you guys that there's some implicit bias here in this one too, because it's not my candidate. Okay, so I asked Mike if we could do this. So of all the people that are here so far, and we're going to get into the meat of the show, I'm sure Mike will get you there when he gets you there. But so if you're a Trump voter, give us a 1. If you're a Kamala Harris voter, give her a 2. And if you're undecided, give us a 3. We can kind of tell what kind of audience Mike has here. And you know, Mike to me is almost too smart. Sometimes he's so smart. He like, Mike, what the hell are you talking about? But you know, he's loyal. He's given so much, and he likes to have the truth come out, and he likes to, you know, speak his mind. That's what we all have to do. And some of us, voting is just not the only thing that we can do, though. If you're going to do anything, it's all that, you know, these elections, who knows?
Who knows nowadays?
Hanging Chad, who remembers that? I don't even know if they have hanging Chads now that everything's computerized. That's even worse.
Or the letter carriers union who endorsed Kamala, right? I mean, like the Trump supporters don't trust vote by mail. So already at least half the population doesn't believe the elections are fair.
And they're already they're voting right now. And you can go to right down here in Hamilton County in Norwood, the Maine Board of Elections, and they're lined up. So I think it's going to be a record vote. And I think it's going to be a surprise to people. I don't think it's going to be as close as people think, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, but man, you know what? I think that it's just, you know, totally beat. I think it's a scam. You know, voting machines and the post office. But that's my opinion. I just don't see how anybody could take an election serious where the people delivering the ballots are the same people's whose union endorsed one of the other candidates. But to me, that's crazy. And then when the Department of Motor Vehicles allegedly is registering people who are here illegally to vote when they get them driver's licenses, that makes at least half the population not trust our election system. That's the sad thing to me, Tony.
It's very sad. It's very sad when you have a hurricane and the Homeland Security guy gets up and says, "We got this other hurricane coming, and we don't have any money." And no. FEMA doesn't give any money to immigrants. Well, go on their site. Just go on the FEMA site. $600 million for 2024.
And Tony, we're going to do another
illegal immigrants.
So guys, Tony and I are going to do another show on that. He has so much material. So probably like next Friday, we'll do the same thing. We'll do a show on how FEMA is funding the illegals that are flooding into our country, who are immediately getting registered to get driver's license. In California, allegedly the DMV is registering them to vote. And there was actually a hearing that we'll show in our next episode to show you how they're doing that.
So your buddy Waltz in Minnesota, I think they just kind of show a piece of paper. I know that was the thing in Springfield, Ohio, that they were saying that the Haitians there, they just had a piece of paper from the government. That's why they were having so many car wrecks, because the people didn't have to pass the test, do anything. Here, thank you very much. So it's sad that, hey, look, we're a nation of immigrants, right, Michael? You know, my grandfather was born
legal
in Italy. He loved Mussolini, according to my dad. And my father, he says there's no such thing as the mafia. You know, he was World War II vet, the Battle of Okinawa on LST. So, hey,
but they came here legally, like my great grandfather did, and they didn't get free hotels. They didn't get free everything. They actually had to get. My great grandfather sold apples on a train and sent away for his family 2 years later after he saved enough money to get them to come over on a steamship. Now we have a certain political party just bringing them here and giving them everything free out of our paycheck. And so that's why people are upset. That's called illegal immigration.
Yeah,
that's the difference. And they don't have to take a test. They don't have to learn about the Constitution. And now they're being registered to vote in local elections. And of course, we know that local elections take place at the same time as federal elections. So all they have to do is check that box. So it's very insidious, say many. Now, Tony, I have this video that I want to share with the audience. Let's see if we can get it up here. All right. So this is a video by a very far left organization called Democracy Now! And so I want to really quick before we get into this video, I want you to lay the foundation as a lawyer would. So we're here to talk about the Brady Law and exculpatory evidence. So what we're going to do is we're going to put up my slideshow. Hey, Ralph, good seeing you, brother. And good seeing you too, BZ Watchdog. And I will put up the where are you? You know what, Tony, I got to do this. This is like something that really quick, Tony, you just got to give me a second, brother, because this is something that's really important. This is something that's really important to BZ. So this is what happens when you get pulled over nowadays. And if you don't go along with the program and agree with all the illegal activity that's going on with the administrative state, this is what's going to end up happening, guys.
Where are your papers, Mav? Where are they? Oh, you don't have any papers?
All right. So we got the concentration camp thing.
Concentration camp, geez.
And a lot of people are calling them FEMA camps now, Tony, right? They're saying that people are going to get sent to FEMA camps if they don't get with the government's program and do what they want.
Well, some people that support Hamas will tell you that the Holocaust didn't even occur. I mean, it's just, people can just unbelievably look at you. And, you know, now we're in a world with too much information that you have to parse it to figure out what the truth is. And it's tough. Yeah. So we're going to talk about Kamala Harris and her, this came up, I think probably to the general public's eye back in 2019 when she was a nominee for the Democrat presidential race, where, you know, they started out with 10 or 15 on stage. And I think the one that we have queued up is Joe Biden with Kamala and Tulsi Gabbard.
Yes.
That was the I think it was one of the third one, second ones. I'm not sure. This is 2019 we're talking about.
Yep.
So when Kamala got destroyed by Tulsi, that was the end of her running for president. So
right. She could never get any nominations. So she had to be basically anointed by, I guess, Obama to replace Biden. And so there was never a vote on Kamala. And as we know, most of my Democrat friends in particular think she's horrible, but they have no choice but to vote for her. And it's sad that it's come to this. But, you know, this is, if you look at the history of the Democrat Party, this is pretty normal. This is their standard operating procedure. So we know that she's in the hip pocket of BlackRock and the World Health Organization, as well as the World Economic Forum. So she's their candidate, the billionaire candidate. When I grew up, it was the Democrats were the party of the poor and the working class, and it was the Republicans that were the party of the rich. And now, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't it seem like it's flipped the script, and now it's the Republicans that are the party of like the blue collar working class, and the Democrats that are the party of.
It certainly seems that way. You know, the Silicon Valley seems to be in love with Kamala, other than Elon Musk, and God bless Elon Musk. Boy, you know, I'd like to meet him someday. I think he's a visionary. I think he's got the best interests at heart. And just like after the first assassination attempt on Donald Trump, there was a doctor there that they interviewed, and he said, I tried to help Corey, but he was already done. And they interviewed him for a long time. And then the lady, after about 15 minutes, got around to saying, well, you're here. What brings you here to vote, you know, for like, and he said, you know, I know Donald Trump's very divisive. I know he's arrogant. I know he can be his own worst enemy, but I think he is the best person to run this country. And I think he has the people's interest at heart. And like he says, if they can do what they're doing to him, what do you think that they are going to do to you if you ever get arrested, or if you say something, just say something wrong on the internet that they say is misinformation?
Right, when they're the primary purveyors of misinformation. I mean, most of the stuff the leftist press says is all garbage, and there's totally lies, and they're treated as if they're the purveyors of truth, right, Tony?
Yeah, well, you see where Miss Pierre, who's I would say is the most existential threat to democracy, when she comes on the press secretary. And there's a video going around where she said 2 years ago how much money that FEMA gives to the illegal immigrants. And then her recent thing is that's absolutely false. FEMA never gives any money to illegal immigrants.
On their website, Tony.
She can just look at you and just smile
Yeah.
and just pass it on like, okay. I mean, we got these straight-faced liars, so you got to be careful, everybody. And that's why I think you're here to listen to Michael Ehline. You know, you don't have to drink all this Kool-Aid, but he's probably going to be more right about a lot of things than wrong. So, and you're going to get a different look.
Don't believe your lying eyes. That's what I always tell my audience.
He tells me, yeah.
Just go along with whatever the government says, and then you'll get, your universal basic income. You won't have any freedom of speech. You won't have any rights, but the government's going to take care of you. You'll be a permanent slave, but you'll own nothing and you will be happy. Yeah. That's the goal. Okay. So Tony, we're going to get into this slideshow really quick. So why don't you tell us what exculpatory evidence is for the audience so they understand?
Okay. Exculpatory evidence is any evidence that could be interpreted to show that the defendant is not guilty. So if one of the main witnesses that the prosecution brings up has a criminal record, that can be used as impeaching evidence. And Mike, as you know, on the rules of evidence, you can be impeached for bias, prejudice. If your credibility is affected, then that hurts what you say. And there's a maxim that, and they can give a jury instruction. If you think this person lied about this one thing, then you can take all of their testimony and throw it out as a lie. So
that's right.
And
in California, we have evidence code section 412. When stronger and more powerful evidence was available but not provided, the evidence that is provided shall be viewed with distrust. Now, in this case, we're talking about a U.S. Supreme Court case called the Brady case, right, Tony?
It's a U.S. Supreme Court case called the Brady case, and that there was two guys that committed a murder, and one did the killing. He was shot, and the other was there, and it was a felony murder case, so you could still get the death penalty. And both men were convicted. The other defendant said that Brady was the shooter, and it turned out that they had withheld a statement from him that said that he wasn't the shooter, and the prosecution had not given that evidence to the defense attorney. So
let me read this to the audience really quick, Tony.
Sure.
Just because I know you guys, Tony created this for you guys. So, and he just knows everything by memory. He doesn't have to read, but I'm really proud of what he did. So I'm just going to read this to the audience. Did Harris commit reckless violations of constitutional law meant to keep innocent people from going to jail? Fact, she failed to turn over to the attorneys for those charged under her office exculpatory evidence. And Tony, you just explained to us what that was. And we're going to go into what the legal definition is now under Brady. Exculpatory evidence is evidence that may have a tendency to show that the defendant may be innocent and has been extended to impeaching evidence of witnesses. So if a witness, is a dastardly person, there should be evidence that could be allowed in your trial against you to impeach that witness. And if the prosecutor refuses to allow that impeaching evidence, that is a violation of Brady. Is that a fair statement, Tony?
That's a fair statement. And by the way, Brady, if you Google him, you'll find out that instead of going to the gas chamber or however they're killing people, his sentence was commuted to life. He was paroled. He got married. he had a truck driving job and he passed away. Right or wrong, this, Michael, they say in these Supreme Court cases that this is one of the biggest things that the prosecutors are aware of.
Yep.
This Brady case was back in, as you can see, 1963. So we're talking about when Kamala Harris was the San Francisco district attorney back in, this happened around 2010.
Yes.
So this was not anything new that she didn't know. And then in the next case after Brady was the Giglio case that extended. Let me drop back. In the Brady case, the evidence was relevant to whether he was going to be sentenced to death. It wasn't relevant on whether he was guilty or not. So that was that issue there.
Right. And it says here, Tony, that this evidence is called Brady material after the case Brady v. Maryland. The facts were that Brady was found guilty of murder and sentenced to death. Brady admitted his participation, but said his companion Bobbitt did the actual killing. I think that's what you were saying.
Yes.
And the defense attorney requested all statements of Bobbitt and got some, but did not get the one where Bobbitt admitted that he's the one who shot the victim. This did not come to the defense's notice until after the conviction and sentence to death. So that would be grounds, in my opinion, for a habeas corpus motion because it's new evidence, right, Tony?
Yes.
Okay. And the Maryland Court of Appeals held that the suppression of evidence by the prosecution denied Brady due process and remanded the case for a new trial as to the punishment. And now the United States Supreme Court held, Tony, that suppression by the prosecution of evidence favorable to the accused who has requested it violates due process when the evidence is either material to guilt or punishment. And that's what you were saying, right, Tony?
Yes.
Okay,
right.
Keep on talking. I just wanted to get the audience.
Yeah, very good. And it's irrespective of good or bad faith of the prosecution, because they have the duty to go out and find the information. The coppers are putting the cases together. And the prosecutor has to have a great policy and a great communication with the police, because the prosecutor has a non-delegable duty to get this information from and if they just sit on their hands, that's no good. And Mike, it's the 14th Amendment, which is our due process amendment, which we'd have to send all your viewers to law school, but that's the one that applies the constitutional principles to the states.
Yes.
So it's when we say it's violating the Constitution, it's the 14th Amendment that's pretty much they're standing on.
Yes. Now, so let me get into a little bit more here. So the deal was here is that so basically, irrespective of the good faith or bad faith of the prosecution, whether or not they intended to harm someone, it didn't matter. Like Tony's saying, the fact is they've got to turn it over, whether or not they had good intentions or bad intentions. The court rationale was that society not only wins when the guilty are convicted, but when the criminal trials are fair. Give me a bunch of ones if you guys agree that society wins when the criminal trials are fair. Give me a bunch of ones. Give me a bunch of twos if you believe that society only wins when the so-called guilty are convicted. Now, our system of justice, according to the Supreme Court, suffers when any accused is not treated fairly. That's a typo. A prosecution which withholds evidence on demand of an accused, which, if made available, would tend to exculpate him. So remember these words, guys: exculpate. That would tend to exculpate him or her or reduce the penalty, help shape a trial that bears heavily on the defendant. In other words, that's a tough deal. It's a tough road to toe, right, Tony, for a defendant?
Yes, it is.
So that casts the prosecutor in the role of an architect. Listen to this, guys, in the role of an architect of a proceeding that does not comport with the standards of justice, and it violates 14th Amendment due process. And that's what you were saying. Now, Tony, you were talking about Giglio. Why don't you talk about Giglio? You could read the rest of this if you want to the audience.
Sure. That was a case that came a little bit later. It was also a Supreme Court case. You can see is a 1972 Supreme Court case involving the prosecution's obligation in regards to criminal discovery and disclosure. I need the slide moved up.
Sorry, Tony.
And so, as we discussed prior to Giglio, and I'm not sure if the G's silent or not, we told you about Brady, and that if they withhold the evidence on demand of an accused, which if made available would tend to exculpate. Exculpate means would tend to give innocence or reduce the penalty. And then Giglio, the court went further and held that impeaching evidence, they made it very clear that if someone has impeaching evidence and fails to give that up, that needs to be given up too. Impeaching evidence, we talked about a little bit at the beginning. Conviction
to show someone might be dishonest, right, Tony? Tends to show they might be dishonest.
Mostly it has to do with dishonesty, conviction of a crime, bias, prejudice. In this case, in Giglio, I believe it was. I'm actually not exactly sure. Other than I know that they didn't give the impeaching evidence, and they had to give that over. That now extended what we call Brady to let everybody know that no, it's just not your case in chief or whatever. Because a lot of times, Mike, in discovery, as you know, there's a little bit of a sloppy exception that people go, well, it's credibility. I don't have to disclose that. That's my, you know. Well, no, that makes it very clear. In a criminal case, you have to disclose anything that would impeach their credibility, really.
Well, but hold on, only the prosecutor. So here's the difference. What Brady shows us is that the defendant has the right to withhold things they don't want to turn over, but anything that could potentially help the defendant, the prosecutor has a duty. Now, if a prosecutor is politically oriented, Tony, and they really want to become the DA and run for governor or run for Senate, run for president, they're going to do whatever they can because they're political animals to get those convictions, which would mean withholding evidence. Is that a fair statement, Tony?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
So let's get into a little bit more. Tell us a little bit more about impeaching the credibility, and I'll move on to the next screen when you're ready.
Okay. So basically, just again, Giglio made it clear that impeaching evidence is exculpatory evidence and must be turned over.
Okay. And why is that? It says right here, doesn't it?
Well, because of the severe harm, failure to turn over this material can get an innocent person convicted. And you got to understand that the prosecution comes in with all the police, all their investigators, all their experts. And here you come as a public defender trying to get appointed some expert if you can, and trying to get some money to pay them. And so, you know, you're already with a stacked deck. That's why, you know, there's a lot of truth to the fact that the more money you have, the better justice you have, the better lawyers you can buy, and the better experts that you can afford.
Let me stop you right there, Tony. Let's talk to the audience. Give me a bunch of ones in the sidebar if you think having a lot of money is going to help you get off of a case, and give me a bunch of twos if you think that if you're poor, you're going to get just as fair of a shot. So if you're poor, you get a fair shot. Give me a 2. If you're rich, you get a better chance. Give me a 1. Let's see what the audience says. Keep on talking, Tony, while we look out for their comments.
Well, it reminds me of when I was a public defender. You know, you can't take money from the client. The state paid. If you can believe this, Mike, back in 1982, I would get $300 for a plea, $1,000 for a trial on these public defender cases.
I remember that.
Hey, now when you got me, I always ran scared. So you know, even though I was a public defender, I didn't want to lose. And I can tell you, after a boyfriend and girlfriend, it was a rape case, and she gets up, she testifies, and crying and everything, and then the judge says, well, we're gonna have to break for lunch. And so I'm like, okay, good. I got my cross-examination coming up. I'm going through my yellow legal pad. I'm going, geez, these questions are horrible. What was I thinking of? And the next thing you know, this kid's father, the kid was only about 19. He comes in my ear and he says, "Sir, I know you're a public defender, but I'll pay you any amount of money, whatever, to get my son off." I said, "Sir, I can't get paid." So I immediately, after not smoking for 15 years, bought a pack of Marlboros and sucked one down, and all's well that ended well. So kind of off topic, Mike. Sorry.
No, but I'm with you because, you know, litigators, a lot of people in the audience probably don't know this, that we have the highest suicide and heart disease rate of any profession. And it's because the good litigators like Tony, and I consider myself to be a good one, we really do care about people. And we take our oath very, very seriously. And that's why I'm doing these shows. And I'm not getting paid for this. Tony's not getting paid for this because we really do. Give us a bunch of ones at least if you appreciate the fact that you recognize that we care about people, guys.
I got a buddy who's a very good criminal lawyer, and he says the worst thing and the most pressurized thing in his life is defending an innocent person.
Yeah, and the dentist also, Mama Lion saying here in the sidebar that dentists have a high
Dentists do too. Yeah, they do. They cause people pain, but I think maybe with the laughing gas, they're starting to not. That's another sad thing too. Yeah, I asked at an event, because I go around, I want to see what everybody's talking about. What about all this fentanyl coming through on the border that's killing everybody? And the lady says to me, "Well, that's why we have recovery." I'm thinking it's hard to recover when you're dead.
Oh, brother, that's crazy.
That just shows you the mindset, some people have. And, I think your mindset and my mindset are the same. If you're whoever you're voting for, we just want you to vote. Yeah, we'd like you to vote for who we'd like you to vote for, but we're not going to put you down. We're not going to say you're a bad person because you have a different viewpoint from us. That's what's ripping this world apart anyway right now, Michael. And that's what caused Hillary when she called, and a vote for Kamala is a vote for Hillary, in my opinion. But when Hillary called, she attacked Trump's supporters, the deplorables. That's when she lost that election.
Yeah. It's when you start, doing the personal insults and losing the civility, that's a big problem. So just really quick, I see a bunch of new people. Andre Robinson, thanks for showing up. As always, Mama Lion, great seeing you. Kevin Westfield, always love having you. Brett Ray, big Brett, good seeing you, Brett. Awesome that you made it. And Tony, normally, my show is going to have about 400 to 500 people in the chat by now.
Wow.
And so that tells me, because we only have 93. So that tells me that we're definitely being shadow banned based upon the title of the video. I've been heavily censored by this platform. They're so political, and they support obviously the candidate that you're not supporting. And you can see that they'll definitely take action to make sure that other people can't get this information. So everybody who's on the show today, please make sure to press the save to favorites and share this with your friends and family and have them listen to this when they're driving their car. It's really, really important that you get this information. So really, and it may pick up. We're going to show some reaction videos, and that's when people, especially the young people, get more involved. But Tony, now we have 100, so we're picking up. Okay, I don't know if you can see there, Tony, but at the top left of the screen, you'll see a little eyeball, and that shows you how many people are in the chat. Right, There's a little ticker that says live, and then next to that. So really quick, I'm just going to get through the slideshow so we can get into the meat of this.
All right.
So because of the severe harm, failure to turn over Brady Giglio material can cause an innocent person to get convicted. The Department of Justice has prepared guidelines for their prosecutors regarding how to compile and precisely what Brady material is. And I know this from having worked for the LA City Attorney. I used to oppose all the 1538.5 motions to suppress. And so we were heavily schooled on Izazaga and on Brady and on Giglio. And of course, Tone being an Italiano, and I'm going to show that also. I have that as well, Tony. So real quick, the failure of Harris to turn over or even have a procedure for determining Brady Giglio material was the issue. And as to the general public, the first notice to most people that Kamala Harris is district attorney of San Francisco, the first time anybody even knew how she made her way into politics, the way she got elected was with allegedly a lot of false convictions by violating the Brady Law. And this is what we're here to discuss today, guys. So you can vote for her. I don't really care. I'm just letting you know that if you guys are like cop watchers and you believe, that we need to keep an eye on the police, this is the person who helped the police lock people up by hiding exculpatory evidence, according to at least one Superior Court judge, findings of fact and conclusions of law a judge made. We're going to show that in a minute, Tony. But anyways, Kamala Harris, as district attorney of San Francisco, was in the Democratic presidential debate of 2019. And Joe Biden brought this up. We're going to show that video. And she unequivocally stated, that is not true. This is not true. And she was never fact checked because we know she's the darling of the WEF and the globalists who want her in power. Now, Tony obtained the judge's decision, which I'm going to show in a minute. Judge Anne Christine Masulo, another Italiano, it looks like, dated May 10th, 2010, 47 years after Brady was decided and 36 years after Giglio was decided. And then here's the link, but I'm going to include it in the description, and we're going to show it. We're going to have it up on the screen in a minute for everyone to read. But basically, the video where Biden confronts her is at 1 hour and 18:36, which we're going to show in a minute. Now, Biden stated, I got to get this bigger. Biden stated in pertinent part. Secondly, she also is in a situation where she had a police department when she was there that, in fact, was abusing people's rights. And in fact, this is Joe Biden saying this. I don't know how he ended up picking her as a VP. And in fact, she was told by her own people, her own staff, that she should do something about and disclose to the defense attorneys like you and me that you, in fact, have been, the police officer did something that you did not give you information that would exculpate your client. And that sounds like Sleepy Joe Biden. I mean, the guy obviously had Alzheimer's or dementia, so it's kind of hard to understand what he was saying. But she didn't do that. And along came a federal judge, and he freed 1,000 of these people, end quote. Guys, I'm here to tell you, and Tony's here to tell you, that is actually true. That's exactly what happened. And Joe Biden was not lying. Sleepy Joe was not lying, guys. He was lying. Biden wasn't lying in this particular instance.
Mike, can I just set the context? What we're talking about now is back in 2019, and this was one of the Democratic candidates for president's debate. And if you recall, it's pretty hard because a lot's been under the dam since 2019. They started out with maybe 15 candidates and broke it down. And so this was probably the second or third debate. Only the Democrats. Tulsi Gabbard was still involved. I don't know if Mike has her queued up.
I do.
This is what Biden said at that debate.
I do. Let's go ahead and we'll do. You know what? Let's go ahead and show Tulsi. Hold on a minute, guys. Let me get her up here. Got to just get it. I got to do it right, guys. It's just kind of difficult the way this thing is set up. All right. So, and again, guys, I'm not like super computer literate here. So just bear with me, guys. This is what Tony's talking about. So just give it a look-see, and you guys can be your own judges.
Councilman Gabbard, you took issue with Senator Harris confronting Vice President Biden at the last debate. You called it a, quote, false accusation that Joe Biden is a racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place.
We're going to try to cut her off.
Poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response.
You know the leftist legacy media is the enemy of the American people by what they don't allow you to hear.
Significantly.
Let's go back. I'm going to let you hear what Kamala has to say.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done.
Lies.
And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform.
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you were in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so.
Real quick, I just want to, again, Tony, so Brett Ray just gifted 5 Michael Ehline injury attorney memberships. So what that means is I have a back channel where I share stuff that I don't share with the general public, where people can peruse and get some free attorney time with me when they're members. And so Brett Ray just bought 5 memberships, and that means that 5 people now, random people now get to become members. So thank you so much, Brett, for supporting my channel and my family.
Wow.
Really appreciate that. Let's get back into the video. Yeah, thanks, Tony. Like, I'm really glad you came on today, brother. And you can already see now there's about 120 people in here. So a lot of people really like watching these videos. So let's keep it rolling.
So there is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
Senator Harris.
My entire career, I have been personally opposed to the death penalty, and that has never changed. And I dare anybody who is in a position to make that decision, to face the people I have faced, to say, I will not seek the death penalty. That is my background. That is my work. I am proud of it. I think you can judge people by when they are under fire, and it's not about some fancy opinion on a stage, but when they're in the position to actually make a decision, what do they do?
Alrighty then. So
my husband and I really wanted a family, but I kept miscarrying. I have
let me just get rid of that one. Okay. Oopsie. Now we have, man, there's so many of them, Tony.
Can you get to the Biden one now? That's the one that's going to set us up.
Let's do it, brother. Let's do it. By the way, I just really quick. So Chili DeCastro from Delete Laws just popped into the chat.
Chili.
Yeah, man. So Chili is my buddy who got locked up, and I went to visit him at the Clark County Jail, and eventually the head jailer said, no, you can't see your client anymore unless you get a local Nevada attorney to pro hoc you in. So they denied me my right to see my client when he was being abused in Clark County Jail. And ultimately, he hired a phenomenal appellate lawyer because, I'm not licensed to practice law in Nevada. But I was representing him on out-of-state matters, and ultimately he was exonerated, Tony, and he got his case thrown out in another bullshit charge that was lodged against him. In another case, the prosecutor just threw it out as soon as this got thrown out because he's one of these cop watcher guys. He's a true American advocate of First Amendment freedom, and so I'll show you some of his videos, Tony. But he's a really great guy, and I'm really glad that he showed up today. So everybody give me a bunch of ones for Chili DeCastro.
I know you think very highly of him, Mike.
Yeah, a lot of people think that he's too bombastic or he's too aggressive, but that's the whole point of the First Amendment, Tony, is that you want to have law enforcement and the government respect the fact that not everybody's going to be like you and I. They have to take into account that God made us all individually, and we're all God's children. And for them to discriminate and deny someone their right of freedom and freedom of press and freedom of ideas and opinion and religion, so long as it's not harming someone else, is un-American. And so that's why I support people like Chili and Chili in general, because he is a true advocate for freedom. And so everybody give me a bunch of ones for Chili. Thanks, Mama Lion. What's the matter, you?
Chili, see if you can cue up that Biden thing. And I just want to tell the folks that are watching that Tulsi at that time, obviously, she was running for president of the Democratic Party. Since then, as you know, or as you probably know, she switched parties to the Republican Party. She now supports Donald Trump. And in light of that, tell me if you think this is just a coincidence. She's been put on the terrorist watch list so that when she goes through an airport, I don't know how bad the search is, but
I do. I'm on the same list. I'm on the same list.
Jeez.
And what they do is they secondary us everywhere we go, and they secondary my children. And the way you know is there's some little S's that are on your airport ticket. And I'm going to have an FBI whistleblower on my show, hopefully within the next month.
Oh, wow.
Who's going to explain how they're doing this. And basically they're targeting, unfortunately, the Biden administration, I believe it's Obama, are targeting their political enemies by declaring them to be terrorists. And they're doing this at the behest of the Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center. They're declaring anyone who disagrees with their far leftist agenda is being potential domestic violent extremists. And this started under Obama, where if you were a military veteran, you were declared a potential domestic violent extremist. And now we know that the Congress just came out with a investigation. I think it was back in March. And I did a video about this, Tony, where if you shop at Cabela's or Dick's Sporting Goods, or you purchased a Bible and you have credit card data, they formed a public-private partnership, the FBI, the DOJ, with this public-private company where they gather your credit card information illegally in violation of the Fourth Amendment. And if you shop or you purchase a firearm or a Bible, you are now on a list of potential domestic violent extremists. That's a fact. And I have the evidence to back it up. I'm not making this up. You can fact check this. You can just watch my video. I show the official documents of that congressional hearing. But for now, Tony, let's get into this video because this is going to blow the audience away. This is what we were talking about with Brady. Now, for those of you who think, oh, you guys are just making it up, you don't like Kamala, blah, 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 or because CBS or PMSNBC or CNN said that one of their fact checkers, also somebody that they paid to fact check, said that it's false. Well, we're going to show you the official court documents that buttress everything that we're saying. Everything that we're saying is true. It's absolute fact. There's nothing unfactual about this. The only person lying right now that you're going to see in this video is the one denying it. And here it goes.
We also know that the
Thank you,
Civil
Senator.
Rights Division, this is important, the Civil Rights Division of the United States Department of Justice said charges should have been filed, but this United States Department of Justice usurped, and I believe it is because that president did not want those charges to go forward, and they overrode a decision by the Civil Rights Division of the United
Thank you,
States
Senator.
Department of Justice. Under my administration, the Civil
Thank you,
Rights
Senator.
Division will reign, and there will be independent investigations.
Vice President Biden, I want to give you a chance to respond to what Senator Harris just said.
That was her after
Senator Harris
Tulsi.
was the Attorney General for 8 years in the state of California. There were two of the most segregated school districts in the country, in Los Angeles and in San Francisco. And she did not, I didn't see a single solitary time she brought a case against them to desegregate them. Secondly, she also was in a situation where she had a police department when she was there that in fact was abusing people's rights. And the fact was that she, in fact, was told by her own people, that her own staff, that she should do something about and disclose to defense attorneys like me.
And we just did in the slideshow, we presented this quote. And this is Sleepy Joe actually saying it.
That you, in fact, have been, the police officer did something that did not give you information would exculpate your client. She didn't do that. She never did it. And so what happened? Along came a federal judge and said, enough, and he freed 1,000 of these people. If you doubt me, Google 1,000 prisoners freed, Kamala Harris.
Thank you, Vice President Biden. And Senator Harris,
Hey, not bad for a guy with dementia. He almost stayed on script.
your response?
This is simply not true. And as Attorney General of California, where I ran the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United
Hold on a
States
minute,
Department
guys.
of
I just
Justice.
want you to we're going to rewind this. She said she made a statement.
And there will be independent investigations.
Vice President Biden, I want to give you a chance to respond to what Senator Harris just said.
When Senator Harris was the Attorney General for 8 years in the state of California, there were two of the most segregated school districts in the country, in Los Angeles and in San Francisco. And she did not, I didn't see a single solitary time she brought a case against them to desegregate them. Secondly, she also was in a situation where she had a police department when she was there that in fact was abusing people's rights. And the fact was that she, in fact, was told by her own people, that her own staff, that she should do something about and disclose to defense attorneys like me that you, in fact, have been, the police officer did something that did not give you information that would exculpate your client. She didn't do that. She never did it. And so what happened? Along came a federal judge and said, enough, enough. And he freed 1,000 of these people. If you doubt me, Google 1,000 prisoners freed, Kamala Harris.
Thank you, Vice President Biden. And Senator Harris, your response?
This is simply not true.
How many times?
And by the way, guys, if you try to Google that now, good luck finding it. That because obviously she's their candidate. You'll probably have to go to like result 5,000 to find all this evidence, but we've got it here for you. So just keep watching.
As Attorney General of California, where I ran the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice, I am proud of the work we did, work that has received national recognition for what has been the important work of reforming a criminal justice system and cleaning up the consequences of the bills that you passed when you were in the United States Senate for decades. It was the work of creating one of the first in the nation initiatives around re-entering former offenders and getting them jobs and counseling.
Thank you, Senator.
I did the work as Attorney General of putting body cameras on special agents in the state of California, and I'm proud of that work.
I want to bring in Congresswoman Gabbard. Congresswoman Gabbard, you took issue with Senator Harris confronting Vice President Biden at the last debate. You called it a, quote, false accusation that Joe Biden is a racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response?
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about re-entering former offenders and getting them counseling. It is why, and because I know that criminal justice system is so broken, that I am an advocate for what we need to do to not only decriminalize, but legalize marijuana in the United States.
I want to bring Congresswoman Gabbard back in. You're responsible.
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you are in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who are on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
Amen.
Senator Harris.
Amen.
My entire career, I have been personally opposed to the
Objection, non-responsive. Tony, let's talk about that when this video is over. Sure. Everything that Kamala does is a deflection. Anytime she answers a question, what are you going to do to fix the economy? Well, I grew up middle class. I know what it's like to be middle class. Kamala, you put 1,000 people away illegally and violated the Brady Law. I have experience as a prosecutor. I did a great job. Now, Tony, isn't that called non-responsive?
That's a non-responsive. And, these journalists on TV, we all know who's lobbing softballs to who. They don't question her. They don't push her. Other than that one black gentleman who said, Lester Holt, who says,
good.
You didn't go to the border. And then she babbled, blah, 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 babbled, and my values have, and he says, but you didn't go to the border, but she never gets pushed, and she's very good. She's a great politician, Michael. Here
She
she
knows how
is
to read
running
from the
for president.
teleprompter.
Nobody's voted for her. Nobody's voted for her in one primary.
She could never win. That's why.
No, so, but let me correct one thing, because you said we were trying to be correct here. I looked this up on Tulsi's thing about Tulsi said she suppressed evidence that a guy was on death row.
Yeah.
This was a question about DNA evidence. They want, how they're opening up cases, and if there's a question, DNA has gotten a lot of people that are in jail out of jail.
Yes, it has.
So she wouldn't let them do DNA on this guy that was on death row. The next guy, the person that came in, did, but it was found that he was guilty of sin. So when Tulsi said he was not guilty, it hadn't gone down yet. So just to correct that, fact check me. I may have read something wrong somewhere else, but that's just want to straighten that out for everybody. And a federal judge, he wasn't the one who dismissed 1,000 cases. It was the prosecutor's department in San Francisco. They had to start dismissing all these cases. People were getting ready for sentencing. They'd already been, some of them, convicted. But
Right.
yes, there ended up to be, and I've read this multiple spots, 1,000 defendants, not prisoners, so to speak, but defendants. So
people who had their butts on the line, and they were criminal defendants, and some of them were incarcerated awaiting trial. And we know that I believe it was a superior court judge in California, that it was that judge's order that we discussed earlier that we're going to show on the show in a minute, that led to them being released. Is that a correct statement?
That is exactly as correct as can be. There were, for 5 years, her own office was saying we need a written policy for Brady material, so we know, and we're all consistent, and we know how to get it from the police. We know how to manage it, because if it doesn't go to the defendant, you're going to lose your case, and you're going to look so unethical. Prosecutors hate this. And that's why she just shakes it off. I was the greatest. Everything she's done is perfect. No, the Department of Justice, they had written a procedure well before her procedure ever came out. I find nothing on the internet that says everybody copied her procedure.
What he's talking about,
just
guys,
put a new one out that basically says, give the defense everything unless it's your work product. And Michael, you could tell them that work product exception is.
Yep. And I'm showing them right now, guy. Everybody take a look at the screen. I'll share this with you right now. This is the 9-5.000 issues related to discovery, trials, and other proceedings. And there's a whole section on exculpatory and impeachment evidence, whole section. And she just ignored that because she wanted to get these convictions, because then she could run on a record that she was a really great hanging prosecutor. But what she did is she caused people to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars to defend against bullshit charges where the police already had exculpatory evidence that was being hidden from them. And this is how she propelled herself into politics, guys. So I just need you guys to understand, if you're voting for her, just understand, if you support the First Amendment, if you support the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendment, this is a candidate that would steamroll every single one of those amendments to get herself into a position of electability. And with the help of the lamestream press, they suppressed all this truthful information, and just like the search engines are doing right now. But let's go ahead and let her finish, because I believe in allowing people to say their side of the story.
Hey, Michael.
Has never changed.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Tony.
When people talk about the First Amendment and freedom of speech, the lay person does not quite understand that it protects us from government.
Yes.
From government intrusion. If you have your own nightclub and don't want me to say crap, in there, that's your perfect right. It can't be discriminatory, but the First Amendment, so Google can kind of do what they want. If Google wants to suppress you, then they can suppress you.
It's a violation of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. And I have several videos on this. They were given, these big tech companies were given immunity from being sued for defamation so long as they didn't interfere with other people's speech. There was a Good Samaritan provision where they could remove things like child porn. But instead, what they're doing now is they're using it as a political tool to destroy their political enemies. And we know that Google is all in for the far left, absolutely 1,000,000% in violation, I believe, of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. I have 3 10-minute videos that I did with Jason Fick. If you go to my profile and type in Section 230, Jason Fick, you can watch those videos and we explain everything. But other than that, I agree. If it's a private business that hasn't been given some kind of a government pass, a get out of jail free card, you're right. But these search engines do not have that immunity. So far, they've gotten lucky with several far left judges where they've ignored the provisions of the Good Samaritan provisions and other parts, the sub 1 of the Communications Decency Act, which we'll talk about in another episode. And by the way, before we let Kamala finish, I'm going to do another series, Tony, and I want you to join me on jury nullification, because this is the ultimate tool that we have to defend against prosecutors like her. Prosecutors like her. All right. So, but let's get into this video really quick. We're going to have fun, Tony. I'm so glad you came on, man. Guys, this is a buddy of mine. We were brought together by Google changing the search engines and making it harder for us to rank on Google. And here we are again now talking about how they're violating our rights again. Here we go.
And I dare anybody who is in a position to make that decision, to face the people I have faced, to say, I will not seek the death penalty. That is my background. That is my work. I am proud of it. I think you can judge people by when they are under fire, and it's not about some fancy opinion on a stage, but when they're in the position to actually make a decision, what do they do? When I was in the position of having to decide whether or not to seek a death penalty on cases I prosecuted, I made a very difficult decision that was not popular to not seek the death penalty. History shows that, and I am proud of those decisions.
Objection non-responsive, Tony. Again, she didn't answer the question. She didn't answer the question at all.
No, she never does. And this goes back to something that you brought up. What do you think the motivation was for her not to have a written policy to get the police to give up, to go into the police personnel file and see if they've been convicted of anything? That she had not. She's right. She didn't seek the death penalty.
Who cares?
She seeks what she wants to seek when she wants to seek it, because she's a great politician. So what happened was the police were upset with her because she hadn't sought the death penalty after a cop was killed. So now she's trying to suck up to the police.
Right.
By not writing this, at least that was the undertone. I can't really say that's true or not, but that's
right.
The stuff that I've read about.
So what you're saying is that, like, the reason she didn't have this written policy is because she wanted to suck up to the jackboot thugs to make it easier for them to get arrests, right?
Yeah, the police don't like giving up this information. You know, they put their guilty hat on you, and by God, look out. Once they don't look anywhere else, Mike. And, you know that.
And by the way, Tony, again, Brett Ray gifted me another 5 Michael Ehline injury memberships.
Jeez.
Thank you so much, Brett. You know, very few people are as giving and caring as you, and I really, really appreciate you. Because what Brett's doing is, Brett's not necessarily giving me like a super chat, which gets shared with YouTube. Brett is trying to get other people to become members, join the channel, and I really, really appreciate that big time. It means a lot to me, and
it's really nice.
It really means a lot to me. So I'm, I do allow gifts. I don't know what that means. There's something on the screen about allowing gifts. So hopefully, oh yes. So I just turned it on, guys. I think it's on. Okay. So really quick, thank you again. Now, Tony, this next video that I have, it's about 15 minutes, but I think it's really important because it's from a far left organization called Democracy Now! And because I'm wanting people to understand that we're not just, here to try to, single her out. This is her own political party who are just very, very disappointed in her. And honestly, most of my friends, because I am a recovering Democrat, most of my friends are flabbergasted that she got on this ticket. And the only thing they can think is that she's basically just bought and owned by the corporations in Silicon Valley. And that's how they were able to finagle this. But let's watch this video, Tony. I'll try to let it run as far as I can because I don't want people to get too bored. But this is a really good video, man. And it really lays things out.
Hey,
It's
Mike.
really, yeah.
Before you get to that, I see Miss Ismael Lopez at 907 says, why aren't these guys also playing the original question? Is it because they're lying about what the question actually was? I'm not sure if she feels like we cut off a question, but I think it really doesn't matter what the original question is because she's not going to answer it anyway. So, but I think we've played.
Yeah, we did. We played everything. This is somebody who clearly is a partisan leftist, and they just want to obfuscate and muddy the waters like a good defense attorney.
Put a link in there for Miss Lopez so she can look it up again for herself. Because
I can
find this stuff.
Yeah, I'll drop
it
the
on the
video.
internet. It's not like we're trying to keep anything secret. We want this is stuff we've looked through and at some point we're going to get to what I call the smoking gun.
We're going to get the judge's own order that what CNN and PMSNBC would never show you, or the so-called fact checker would never share with you. We're going to show you the actual court order signed by the judge's actual findings of fact and conclusions of law that she violated Brady and violated the rights of at least 1,000 people. But now we're going to show a far left organization called Democracy Now!, which many people believe is just as Marxist and leftist as NPR is. And so it's pretty amazing. Let's go ahead and let this guy talk.
Aslan, a professor at the University of San Francisco School of Law. In January, she wrote a widely read article in the New York Times titled, "Kamala Harris was not a progressive prosecutor." Aslan wrote, quote, "Time after time when progressives urged her to embrace criminal justice reforms as a district attorney and then the state's attorney general, Ms. Harris opposed them or stayed silent. Most troubling, Ms. Harris fought tooth and nail to uphold wrongful convictions that had been secured through official misconduct that included evidence tampering, false testimony, and the suppression of crucial information by prosecutors."
Laura Bazelon joins us now from San Francisco. Thank you for joining us, Professor Bazelon. Can you start off by going through Senator Harris's record, starting with her being DA of San Francisco?
Sure. So she was elected in 2004, and she took a pretty courageous stance initially in that she didn't seek the death penalty against a man who had been accused of murdering a police officer. And she did get a lot of blowback from that. Subsequently, she moved much more towards the center in many of her positions. And two things happened in her tenure as DA that I think are worth mentioning. One is that there was a big crime lab scandal whereby there was a lab technician who was using the drugs rather than testing.
Okay, so Tony, is this what you were talking about?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I'm going to keep playing it.
And as a result, many, many convictions became tainted. And it turned out that her office had known for months, top attorneys had, and had not disclosed that information to the defense. And when a judge found out, she became quite incensed and wrote an opinion castigating Harris for allowing this to happen. Harris's reaction to that was to try to get the judge disqualified by saying that she had a conflict of interest because her husband was a defense lawyer.
So in California, that would be, she'd already used up her 170.6 as peremptory challenges. So I believe that was a 170.1. And typically that's only going to be based upon an extreme bias, a political monetary interest. And typically that would have to be approved by the Commission on Judicial Performance or the presiding judge. So those rarely get granted. But that's how adamant Kamala was to get this judge thrown off, who was simply pointing out that you're in league with someone who's stealing drugs from a crime lab. Let's keep going.
Failed and 600 cases were thrown out. The second piece of her tenure that I think is important that not a lot of people know about is a case involving a man named Jamal Truelove. That case was tried by Linda Allen, who was one of Harris's deputies. And the case against Truelove turned on one eyewitness. It was a one eyewitness identification case. He was convicted and sentenced to 50 years to life. And the Court of Appeals threw out that conviction, castigating what Allen had done as gross and egregious prosecutorial misconduct. They said that her closing argument was a yarn made out of whole cloth. Recently, Truelove sued the city of the city of San Francisco, and won a $13.1 million judgment.
Now, you've also written about another case, George Gage. Could you talk about that as well?
Yes, and this is what prompted me really to write this piece. It's Harris's record on wrongful convictions. So after Truelove, there was Gage, and there was Johnny Baca, and Daniel Larson, and a man named Jose Luis Diaz. And in these cases, what happened was that Harris was at that point the AG, the top official in the state of California, the top prosecutor. And
he was the top prosecutor. So when I worked at the LA City Attorney, she was considered to be our top boss. So she oversaw all the district attorneys as well as the city attorneys, guys. And almost to a man, they all thought she was a joke. And that's when she was hooking up with Willie Brown and going to, I guess, these Diddy parties and all this crazy stuff, you know, looked like a hooker, but yet she was the AG now. Just crazy stuff was going on. Look, most of the people in the prosecutor's office in LA where I worked were Democrats. Believe it or not, the prosecutors were far left Democrats, and they couldn't stand this lady. And that's why she was appointed, because there's no way she could have ever been elected. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. There's no way that Kamala could have ever been elected. She can't even debate anyone. She can't even talk unless she's reading from a teleprompter. Agreed ones, disagreed twos.
And when these convictions came up, they had been handled by lower DAs, and it was her job to decide whether or not to defend them. In George Gage's case, he had been convicted, again, based on a single witness. It was his stepdaughter, Marion, who accused him of sexually abusing her. And the case turned on Marion's testimony. It turned out after the verdict that the prosecutor had suppressed a lot of material about Marion, including medical records and a note from her own mother saying, "My daughter is a pathological liar who lives her lies." And rather than acknowledge that this really terrible thing had happened, that this prosecutor had held back information that might have swayed the verdict, what Harris's attorneys went into court and did was say, look, George Gage, who had been forced to act as his own lawyer, didn't raise his claim in exactly the right way. And so for this technical reason, you should affirm that conviction.
Right.
It went to oral argument, and the judges were very concerned about that position, told the deputy to go back and talk to his supervisors to try to resolve the case, which was a signal to really get rid of it and do the right thing. And instead, Harris's office doubled down.
Hey, Tony, have you ever had that happen where a judge has told you, hey, or told the prosecutor, hey, you better rethink what you're doing?
Yeah, you know, but it's they have to, you know, be pretty abusive. They you know, most of the prosecutors, you got to understand, to your audience, the prosecutors are in the same courtroom
every day,
virtually every day for that month or for that 3 months. So they know the judges so much better than you could ever know them. And you know, that's 9 times out of 10, it's not the best thing in the world. But
Tony, tell us how much different it is from civil. Like, the criminal lawyers all know each other. They all know the court staff. They have lunches and dinners with the secretaries, the clerks of the judge. They're buddies with the marshals and the deputies. These people know each other, right?
Oh, yeah, because they're in court all the time. You know, we're civil lawyers. You get a case, you might have the case for a year working it up and then file a lawsuit because it couldn't settle. And these cases last forever, you know. Yep. So you got to have great patience. We don't want our lawyers to keep, you know, these bad statistics. And you have so much uncertainty that you have to deal with.
And your image too, your perception with the other people as a criminal defense or a prosecutor. You know, you see them every day. It's not like civil where you don't see these people.
That's right. You know, so, you know, I got a great story. I'm going to tell it so quick.
Okay, let's do it.
I got a buddy that was a defense attorney his whole life. And he was very respectful to the police all the time, unless he had to, you know, get a little tough. But, you know, he basically didn't put him down. It's kind of like, hey, you voted for so-and-so. I don't care. Who are you as a person? He gets drunked up with one of our buddies. They can't even figure out how to get out of the damn parking garage. He goes through the thing and just crashes. Our one buddy gets dropped off. He's always lucky. Bruce, I shouldn't have mentioned his name, but he gets picked up. He's sitting in the station waiting to get processed. Here comes 2 narcs. Brew, what are you doing here? He goes, oh man, he says, hold on. They went around, talked to a few people, and you know that the police have the discretion, as do the prosecutors. And he decided you can go on home. You can't drive home, but you can go on home. So it just shows you how you treat people. And like you say, you're in the criminal courtroom, you meet these people, and these people know you. They're out to get you, or they go, this guy's a straight guy. He's a straight shooter. He's a good guy.
So as I was saying earlier, Tony, her reputation amongst the criminal prosecutorial and defense bar was abhorrent. They called her Willie Brown's stepchild. They made fun of her, that she basically, the only reason she got political power is because she opened her what to like Mayor Willie Brown and all these politicians. And she was universally hated by the prosecutorial and the defense, universally hated. So she was basically, put just like she is now. She was appointed, not elected. And so that's the point I just wanted to share with everybody is she's been appointed to her jobs, not really elected. In California, it's a single party state. The Democrat Party decides who gets elected. It's basically like communist China, according to many. But let's get into the rest of this video.
And George Gage is currently 80 years old. He is serving a effective death in prison sentence.
I want to go to an interview Kamala Harris did last month on Face the Nation with correspondent Ed O'Keefe.
You take your prosecutorial record against the push in your party for criminal justice reform. There's a lot of concern among especially more liberal and younger parts of the party. You may not be the best person to do that, given that you were implementing those tough on crime initiatives as a prosecutor. Can they trust you to do that?
Well, here's the thing. When I became a prosecutor and when I was elected district attorney and also attorney general of California, I implemented some of the most significant reforms to date during those years that had been implemented. Like I said, I created one of the first reentry initiatives that became a model. It was designated as a model in the United States.
Okay, so again, objection, non-responsive. Tony, sustained or not?
It's sustained.
Okay, here we go.
Means the objection is granted.
To be, as I call it, smart on crime. I was the first in the nation leading the State Department of Justice in California, which, by the way, is the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, to require my agents to wear body cameras. I created, as Attorney General, the first in the nation implicit bias and procedural justice training for law enforcement, knowing that that had to be addressed, which is the implicit bias that exists in law enforcement and the potentially lethal outcomes that occur from that.
So the concerns are overblown?
The concerns are overblown. Yes, no question.
First question she's ever answered.
That is Senator Kamala Harris on Face the Nation, speaking to correspondent Ed O'Keefe. If you could respond to this, Laura Bazelon.
Sure. So you can hear her struggling to come up with a list. And she starts with her Back on Track program that she implemented as DA. This was a program that did help certain very select non-violent offenders.
And again, I just want everybody to understand this Democracy Now!, this is a far left channel. These people are not Republicans. They are far, far left.
Who is speaking? Do you know?
What's that?
Who is this lady speaking right now?
Her name is Laura Bazelon, and she is a professor at the University of San Francisco School of Law. I mean, I don't think you could get more far Marxist other than Berkeley. Can I get a bunch of ones if you agree with that, guys, in the sidebar?
111. Where's that video from, Mike? Where'd you find that video? That's a very good video.
Well, I'm going to drop it right now, guys. I'm going to drop it right now in the chat bar. And so, Tony, you probably won't be able to open it because you're not on YouTube, I don't think. But my audience should be able to click it and open it. But I want to keep going because I know it's getting late where you're at, Tony. And I want to get through this.
We got to get to the smoking gun.
Yes, because we still have a lot of material. So we got about another 10 minutes of this video. And then after that, Tony, we'll be able to get to the smoking gun. So just bear with me. Tony, drink something to stay awake, and I'm going to get through this video. All right, guys, here we go.
Ranter society. It affected a very small group of people. She then talks about body-worn cameras. She was asked by the California state legislature to support a bill to mandate all police officers wearing body-worn cameras, and she declined to do that. With respect to implicit bias training, that is important. What's also important, and I would say more important, is investigating officer-involved shootings. She was called upon by the legislature to do that, and once again, she declined.
Agreed.
And then when you go down the list of the issues that we think about when we think about a progressive prosecutor, on every single one of those issues, she was on the wrong side. And in some cases, her opponents ran to her.
She is a self-serving political animal, and that's all she is.
Her left. So, for example, with marijuana legalization in her run for re-election as Attorney General, her opponent ran to legalize. She was against it. She's since changed her position now that the vast majority of the Democratic Party has moved in that direction. There are other examples as well. Her failure to support legislation that would reduce certain felonies to misdemeanors, going after parents criminally for having truant children. So there's a lengthy list of policy positions where.
And that's part of the prison industrial complex scheme that's been going on, unfortunately, with the Democrats and Republicans over the years, where they have these private prisons. And now we've seen judges getting busted for doing deals with child protective service workers where they sell children into these prisons. This is factual stuff. I've done a video on this. This is absolutely fact checkable. There have been judges that have been thrown in prison for doing this. Child protective service workers getting payouts from foster homes in basically what amounts to human trafficking operations. These types of people that are political animals, they don't care about you.
Was the progressive path and there was the center right path, and she did not take the progressive path.
I wanted to ask you specifically about this whole issue of parents with truant children and her policy of trying to prosecute them. I want to go to Kamala Harris's 2011 inaugural speech.
Homeschool your kids anyways, guys. Why would you let your enemy teach your children? Malcolm X.
California Attorney General, as she touted her truancy policy during her tenure as District Attorney of San Francisco. This is what she said.
We know chronic truancy leads to dropping out, which dramatically increases the odds that a young person will either become a perpetrator or a victim of crime. Folks, it's time to get serious about the problem of chronic truancy in California. Last year alone, we had 600,000
That's right.
truant students in our elementary schools, which roughly matches the number of inmates in our state prison system.
Well, that'll make all of her friends in the prison industrial complex happy, won't it, Tony?
Yep.
Let me keep on playing. By the way, What's the Matter You made a comment, and I really love What's the Matter You. He says, that's right, Michael, and that's why if you sign your name to Trump, it's just as bad. He fully supports the prison industrial complex with his actions too. I don't know, now after what happened to him with these political persecutions against him, maybe he's changed a little bit. What's the matter? I don't know. But one thing I do know is that his justices that he appointed gave the Second Amendment a breath of fresh air. Can you imagine if Hillary would have gotten in? We would have no more Second Amendment. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree with that, guys.
And is it a coincidence? Of course not. And as unacceptable as this problem is, I know we can fix it. In San Francisco, we threatened the parents of truants with prosecution, and truancy dropped 32%. So we are putting parents on notice. If you fail to take responsibility for your kids, we are going to make sure that you face the full force and consequences of the law.
So that was Kamala Harris in 2011. What exactly did she do as DA in prosecuting parents?
So what ended up happening was that, and this actually took effect after she left and became Attorney General, prosecutors then had the power under this law to prosecute parents for a misdemeanor for being essentially responsible for their children missing numerous days of school. The idea being that they would be scared into making sure that their kids actually did attend school, and some parents were in fact prosecuted. And the pushback about this, I think, was on two.
The political class wants to scare parents. They think that they own our children. It's ridiculous.
Fronts. One, it disproportionately impacted communities of color and parents of color who were basically more often targeted by this law than people who were white. And two, this idea idea that removing a parent from the home or subjecting them to criminal prosecution would be a tool to really sort of reknit a family, which I think is very questionable. There are a lot of things going on when there are truant children, including poverty, drug use, different issues with kids. And it's just not clear to many people who work in the juvenile space that the right answer to that is to criminalize the parent's conduct.
And has she responded since? I mean, that was a clip in 2011. Now that she is running for president and her record is being questioned on a number of these issues.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that to me has been what's been frustrating, is that I don't find her responses to be responsive to the questions that she's being asked. And I don't feel oftentimes that she's being asked the hard question. So the Face the Nation clip is kind of the perfect example where she's thrown what I think is sort of a softball and then responds by ticking off a couple of
And again, this is a far left University of San Francisco law professor. She just doesn't happen to be part of the media industrial complex.
Accomplishments that when you look at them in the bigger context actually aren't that progressive. And so part of it is that she hasn't been pushed directly to answer for truancy, for George Gage, for Jamal Truelove, for marijuana, for opposing testing in Kevin Cooper's case. I mean, she's not getting those questions, I think, directly and forcefully enough. But then also disappointingly, I think she hasn't reckoned with it and said, look, I am responsible for those decisions. She has said more broadly, the buck stops with me. I was the head of my office. But she needs to take that next step and acknowledge these specific things that she did and reckon with that record.
I want to go to Senator Kamala Harris speaking to reporters in January as she announced her candidacy for president. Senator Harris was asked about her role in defending the California Department of Corrections efforts to prevent transgender prisoners from getting gender reassignment surgery.
I was, as you are rightly pointing out, the Attorney General of California for 2 terms, and I had a host of clients that I was obligated to defend and represent. And
now, Tony, I got a question for you because a lot of people are asking me this. Doesn't she sound like she's drunk a lot of times when she gives her speeches?
I've never noticed that, Mike. I'm not going to say that is. Now, she does. Depending on who she's speaking to, she'll give you a little Obama imitation, a little, I don't know, you've seen those videos where all of a sudden then people pick up on it and it's kind of like, who cares? If that's the worst thing that she did, we probably wouldn't even be worrying about this program, but that's not even close. And in fact, I just put in the box that the truancy issue, that was a money issue, right? Federal government wanted to take some funds. So then she wants to, and there's a video out there of a black lady who was put in jail because her daughter didn't go to school, was truant because she had sickle cell anemia. She had a medical excuse. So
and that's common in the black community.
Fact check me, but it's out there. I'll tell you, it's about 3 minutes and it's very sad.
And that's common in the black community, sickle cell anemia. And look, I will second that opinion of yours. I noticed that when she's before a black audience, she'll start talking with an Ebonics accent. When she's before a Jamaican audience, she'll start talking Jamaican. When she's with an Indian accent, she starts the Indian accent. And I just think that it's really kind of ridiculous. I don't know. Give me a bunch of ones if you guys notice that too. Give me a bunch of twos if you guys just think that I'm talking out of my butthole. Let's go ahead and finish up this video.
I couldn't fire my clients. And there were, unfortunately, situations that occurred where my clients took positions that were contrary to my beliefs. And it was an office of a lot of people who would do the work on a daily basis. And do I wish that sometimes they would have personally consulted me before they wrote the things that they wrote? Yes, I do. But the bottom line is the buck stops with me. And I take full responsibility for what my office did. But on that issue, I will tell you, I vehemently disagree and in fact worked behind the scenes to ensure that the Department of Corrections would allow transitioning inmates to receive the medical attention that they required, they needed, and deserved.
So that was Senator Harris. When she was announcing for president, she was speaking at Howard University. Professor Laura Bazelon, your response.
Well, I think what is important to do is to back up and talk about what the job of a prosecutor is. So many people think that it is about convicting people, and it is not. It's actually about doing justice. And that means that if you see something that is wrong, not just against your core principles, but violates, for example, the Equal Protection Clause or the Due Process Clause, you are required as the top prosecutor in your state to stand up and say, I won't enforce this law. And in fact, that's what she did in Proposition 8. So to say, I had these clients and I had no choice but to take these positions is not correct. So I'll give you this example. Proposition 8 was passed by California voters banning same-sex marriage. When she was basically told that she needed to defend this law, she refused to defend it because it violates the Equal Protection Law, in her opinion, and actually as the Supreme Court later decided. So she had that option when it came to this transgender surgery. She had that option when it came to the death penalty. When that came up and a judge found that it was unconstitutional, she defended it. And her response has always been, well, these are my clients. But in fact, no, your job is to uphold the Constitution. And if you think these laws violate the Constitution, then you should not defend them.
I wanted to ask you, in your op-ed piece, you say that the term progressive prosecutor has become a trendy subject these days. What do you see as what marks would be some of the hallmarks of a truly progressive prosecutor in America in 2019?
So you're right. It has become this real buzzword. And we just saw last week with this insurgent campaign of Tiffany Caban in Queens. This is someone who's 31, a queer Latina, lifelong public defender, never prosecuted a case. And she ran on a platform of dismantling our system of mass incarceration, decriminalizing certain crimes, not prosecuting certain crimes, ending cash money bail, which is essentially a criminalization of poverty, because it says to people, whether you can get out or not doesn't really depend on anything other than your ability to pay, which means a wealthy person can be free and a poor person has to stay and languish in jail while their case goes forward. So progressive prosecutors, they run on those platforms, and they also run, most importantly to me, on a platform of, we are going to correct wrongful convictions. And when people are suffering and dying in prison and they are innocent or they are wrongfully convicted because of corrupt official misconduct, we are going to uncover that. We are going to go to court and we are going to do the right thing and undo those convictions. So it's a laundry list of policy positions, and they are brave and they are new in our system because we've had for so many decades people running on who can be the toughest on crime. But a lot of Americans are getting really fed up with that because it's expensive, it's ineffective, and it's unjust and racist. And so these new prosecutors are embracing reform, and they are running and they are winning on that platform.
Laura Bazelon, we want to thank you for being with us, professor at University of San Francisco School of Law, director of the school's Criminal and Juvenile Justice and Racial Justice Law Clinics. We'll link to your piece in the New York Times. Kamala Harris was not a progressive prosecutor.
Wow, wow, wow. So, guys, that is a far-left progressive news show trashing Kamala Harris because, like we know, she doesn't answer questions directly and she just wants political power, right? So that's the issue. So now, Tony, this is what you wanted me to get to. And guys, I know Tony's got to be tired because he's back east like some of you are. So, Tony, I'm going to let you sort of tell the audience what's going on. And I know you're not a California attorney, but I am. So I can sort of help fill in the blanks. All right.
Okay, well, we're going to get to this decision out of the Superior Court of the State of California, County of San Francisco, filed May 17th, 2010. It's the order and statement of decision regarding motion to dismiss or compel disclosure of documents and for a protective order, and it's by Judge Ann Christine Mazzullo. Before I get into the actual decision, which Michael's showing you right there, it's a PDF.
What's on the left, Tony? What's on the left? Tell us what that is.
That is all the other, some of the other defendants in other cases joined in with this one gentleman who filed this case. So all these people are people that were complaining about they were not getting their discovery. And so they joined in this motion because they knew something wasn't kosher.
Tony, I got to stop you. Can you tell the audience what discovery is? Because a lot of them may not know.
Discovery is when you're entitled to get information from the other side. Sometimes some of it you have to disgorge yourself. You got to give them the witnesses that you're going to call. So discovery is much broader in civil cases. It almost goes on forever. Criminal cases, not so much. That's why it's very important that this Brady rule, that the prosecution divulge all this exculpatory evidence that there is. So here's the lead into this. This is dated June 10th, 2019. It's by Zusha Ellison and Alejandro Lazo. And they were writing for wallstreetjournal.com. And it says, Kamala Harris didn't act for 5 years on policy to help ensure fair trials. Memos show the Democratic presidential candidate advised in 2005 to adopt a progressive policy as San Francisco district attorney, delayed before backtracking amid setback. Aides to Ms. Harris in 2005. Now, remember, it was 2010 when all this went down about problems with these people. 5 years before, in 2005, they began recommending and adopting a policy popular among progressive criminal justice reformers to disclose past misconduct by law enforcement in order to ensure that defendants receive a fair trial. At the same time, the police unions were already critical of this novice politician. So that's, again, kind of alludes to the reason for this.
So that's your lead into this. And what this is, guys, this is an order and statement of decision regarding a motion to dismiss or to compel disclosure of documents and for a protective order. In other words, exculpatory evidence, to compel exculpatory evidence like bad criminal past or bad things cops were doing, like planting drugs or stealing drugs. And it was a decision to either dismiss the case or to compel Kamala Harris to turn over this exculpatory information and for a protective order to get these people out of jail. Is that a fair statement, Tony?
That's a fair statement. And what basically, just to get to the facts of what the issue was, it was with the police crime lab, and they had a lady there, a lab tech by the name of Deborah Madden, who had a domestic violence conviction in 2008 that had never been disclosed by prosecutors. If it had, her credibility as a witness likely would have been challenged by defense attorneys well before the scandal, and she may not have been allowed to handle drug evidence, said prosecutors and public defenders. Then she went on to start doing cocaine. Her sister called. There was a memo that by one of the prosecutors in the district attorney's office saying, well, I don't think we can rely on her. I don't think we can use her. And all this time, Kamala Harris still has no written policy. She says she has a verbal policy, but the judge, in her opinion, now it's pretty rare, Mike, that a trial judge, as she was, would write a 26-page opinion on them. They wanted this information about this woman, or they wanted their cases dismissed. And ultimately the judge says, give them the information and give it to them now. And basically, as said,
this was Debbie Madden. So Debbie Madden was employed as a criminalist with the San Francisco Police Department Crime Lab for approximately 28 years when she was arrested on October 2nd, 2007 on felony charges in connection with domestic violence incident at her residence in Belmont, California. Madden was charged with violations of California Penal Code Section 245 sub A1, assault with a deadly weapon, Section 273.5, inflicting corporal injury on spouse or cohabitant. Madden was released on bail. Nearly 6 weeks later, Madden reported her arrest to her supervisors by letter. November 15, 2007, an internal investigation was opened by the SFPD Management Control Division. November 17, 2007. Madden's jury trial began on February 11, 2008 in the San Mateo Superior Court. Blah, 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 vandalism, all this crazy stuff. She was supposed to serve 30 days in jail, county jail, but she got credit. The remaining 28 days was supposed to be done through a sheriff's work program. She was prohibited from possessing or consuming alcohol. She was required to undergo alcohol testing, 104 hours of domestic violence training. Harris knew all about all this stuff, and she's still working there in charge of the drug lab. Is that a fair statement, Tony?
That's a fair statement. And then in addition, on November 19th, 2019, an assistant district attorney sent an email to her supervisor complaining about issues at the San Francisco Police Department crime lab. In particular, Miss Madden had become increasingly undependable for testimony. The email also stated the problem doesn't appear to be isolated. I've had previous discussions with another prosecutor about her. Please try to get the police department's attention. I am also letting the crime lab know that we may not rebook cases that Debbie Madden does the analysis until they can figure out what is going on with her. 4 days later, they noticed that another criminologist noted the envelopes containing cocaine in the bins were all messed up and in disarray.
Right.
So not only was there the domestic violence, but they knew that she was doing cocaine. She went into treatment, 30-day recovery program. On December 16th, 2009, Madden's sister again called the supervisor.
Tony, real quick, I got to stop you. April Rain just gave me a super sticker. Thank you, April Rain. Give me a bunch of ones for April Rain. Guys, make sure to like and subscribe to April Rain's channel. It's people like April Rain that help keep my wife off my butt, that allows me to have more time to spend with you guys in these chats. Didn't mean to cut you off, Tony, but I've got to give credit to people because they're spending their time and money, their hard-earned money, to come in here and basically give us some love. So a bunch of ones for April Rain. Let's get back into it, Tony. I'm trying to follow along with you. We're on page 4 now, and I just shared the link so you guys can go follow along. If you click the legal type pad link that I just gave you, we're on page 4 of this judge's decision. Go ahead, Tony. Keep talking, bro.
Yeah, so she's given the factual background, and that's what I just gave you just then. I read that part, and I'm not going to try to read that. Then the procedural background, she talks about a little bit, and that's that this defendant, Bill Bowen.
Give me the page you're on so I can follow along.
I'm on page 6.
Okay, page 6. Thanks, Tony.
Procedural background.
Okay.
And she talks about how the case got in front of her. He had a case, these were all pretty much cocaine cases. And he filed a motion for discovery and hadn't got it. So that's why these what they call motion to compel, to make the prosecutor give it to him.
Yeah.
On April 9th, 2010, the court conducted an initial hearing on the defendant's motions. And initially, this court.
Wait, I got to stop you again, Tony. We got another one, brother. We got
okay.
What's the matter, you? $4. Thanks. What's the matter, you? By the way,
nice.
What's the matter, you? Is a nonpartisan, and I just love it that I have nonpartisans on my show. Thank you so much. What's the matter, you?
Man.
$2 says, sorry, I don't have a lot more for you. Hey, we don't care what's the matter, you. Even if it was 50 cents, the fact that you're contributing and helping my show stay alive is all that matters to me, and I really appreciate it. Go ahead, Tony. Keep on talking, brother.
So, like I was saying, the court conducted their initial hearing. Initially, the court confirmed that all of the documents previously provided were relevant working documents. And a Brady log was started in one case.
What's a Brady log, Tony? Tell us.
You want to log in. They didn't have a policy to do this. But a Brady log is you would go through the whatever the case file is, and you would flag everything that's Brady material to make sure that, now I think they put a blue page on it to make sure that gets to the other side. Because like we said, if it doesn't and it comes out, the conviction is going to be overturned, and that's going to be the end of the story. And the prosecutor, if you can't run a district attorney's office and do the basic things that any judge, any prosecutor would say that you need to do, and she doesn't do these for 5 years, how is she going to run our country? I mean,
oh my God, that was prophetic, Tony.
Lord,
Jiminy Christmas.
So
give me a bunch of ones for Tony, guys. That was prophetic.
And then the judge asked the
what page, Tony? I'm trying to
provide me
follow.
this information. We're on page 7.
Okay.
They didn't provide it. I asked the district attorney to provide information regarding the policies or procedures in place to determine whether employees of the San Francisco Police Department had suffered either felony convictions or misdemeanor convictions involving crimes of moral turpitude.
Oh my gosh. So you're saying that people who worked for the police department who had crimes against them for moral turpitude, misdemeanor convictions, or felonies, the prosecutor refused to turn that information over, which certainly would have gone towards their ability to be honest or dishonest, right, Tony?
That's right. And if there was no procedure in place, the court wanted to know, why was there no procedure? The court was informed that a declaration would be provided on these points from the highest levels of the office. The highest level was Kamala Harris.
That's right.
This
She was
was
the
when she
AG,
was
the
district
Attorney General.
Attorney of San Francisco, not the Attorney General of the whole state.
Okay, okay.
The court was informed that a declaration would be provided. It wasn't. And so she held this other hearing, and she basically says the legal standard is that the Constitution requires this to be
page 8.
To go out and find this, you need to have a policy to do this.
Tony, page 8.
Page 8, and then we're going to page 9. I want to get through this.
Yes, sir. Understood. Thanks, Tony. Just kind of keep me posted because I'm trying to show the audience this.
Okay.
All right.
So then she talks about the law regarding discovery, and then she talks about discovery of personnel files of the police. They don't like that. You can't get everything out of there, but if it's exculpatory, which, hey, impeaching evidence or a statement that somebody else did it.
A witness who stole drugs from the drug lab and is testifying against you, you certainly would want to know that they're a drug addict who steals drugs from the same drug lab that's convicting you on cocaine charges. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement. And now we're going to page 12, where there are the findings and conclusions of law. This is where the judge says, okay, now as to this case, here's what we're going to do. Madden's criminal record, her suspension from employment, and the information described above relevant to the work of the crime lab is both favorable to the defense, exculpatory information, and material. It means it's significant.
Yeah.
Accordingly, pursuant to Brady and Giglio, which we talked about, it should have been and must now be produced to the defendants in each of the cases under consideration here. This is so even to the extent that the information was in the possession of the San Francisco Police Department and not known to the district attorney's office. The people, which is the district attorney, failed here in two respects. First, the district attorney's office did not have in place policies and procedures designed to discover and produce exculpatory information regarding San Francisco Police Department witnesses. And second, the people, by which the court means both the police who investigate the crime and the district attorney as the prosecutor, failed to produce exculpatory information actually in their possession regarding Madden and the crime lab. For these reasons, as explained in more detail below, the motion to compel is granted.
What page are you on right now?
That was page 11.
Oh, page 11. Okay. Let me get back.
And then she talks about the district attorney's office did not have policies or procedures to comply with Kyle's, Brady, or Giglio, or the California statutory discovery obligations. And she says it's the district attorney who has the affirmative obligation. It's not the police who have the affirmative obligation. It's you, district attorney. That's who the court looks to.
She was blaming the cops, right?
To make sure that all of the information constitutionally required is provided to the defense. And what I seem to be hearing is you're assuming that the police provide you with what information?
Wait. Well, hold on, guys. Give me a bunch of ones if you think the police are going to voluntarily provide information that the police are engaged in criminal activity. Give me a bunch of ones if you think they'll do that. Give me a bunch of twos if you think that's utter nonsense. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, the answer that the prosecutor said to the judge who was in front of her, Miss Wu, says, yeah, we rely on the police. The court, I'm assuming honestly there's no policy like that and there's no procedure in place. I'm happy to entertain a declaration from you if you have a procedure, but I was promised one today and the court has none. And you're answering the court's question.
Tony, we got another one.
What you're
Tony,
saying.
we got another one. We got another one. Jeff, $2 from Jeff. I always watch and appreciate you teaching us. Guys, give me a bunch of ones for Tony too, because without Tony, I wouldn't have even done this show. He's the one who brought this to my attention. So a bunch of ones for Tony, a bunch of ones for Jeff. Make sure to like and subscribe to Jeff's channel, by the way, and give him some love. Tony, whenever you're ready, keep on talking, brother.
The only other thing that I can say is some of the comments here is the district attorney's office, this is from the judge, has demonstrated a level of indifference to this court, to her repeated request for an explanation as to why it failed to disclose Madden's 2007 arrest and 2008 conviction to the defense.
What page are you on, Tony?
That was page 14. And she basically says, this is your fault, Miss District Attorney. This has gone to the highest levels. There's no doubt in my mind. And eventually, this judge sent all these cases back to their own judges. And about 1,000 of these cases were dismissed by the prosecution. It wasn't a federal judge. It was the prosecution. Basically, you know, you got the main witness who's got cocaine all over her nose is weighing your cocaine, and who knows, she's got it all mixed up. How you know? And she doesn't want to tell anybody this. And
Tony,
so,
listen, Tony, right here it says right here that they're relying on the Garden Grove PD versus Superior Court, which is a 2001 case, for the proposition that they can't run a Kletz inquiry on peace officers because the officer's date of birth is contained in the officer's personnel file, and therefore they can't run the report. And the judge is saying that's bullshit. She's just ripping the prosecutor apart. She's saying that the district attorney is obligated to conduct a review of the files of all significant police officer witnesses and disclose any Brady material because the prosecutor does not have access to confidential personnel files. She's saying they have, just because they're saying they don't have access doesn't matter. They have to do it. They got to do it.
exactly right. And whether it's good faith or bad faith. And at this time, you know, remember, her office has been asking her for 5 years, we need to get a written policy in place. The federal government's got a policy. All the other prosecutors, many of them in California, had policies. She doesn't want to do the policy. So all of a sudden, as we've heard from all these things, oh, but when I did it, it was the best thing in the world and everybody followed it.
Tony, here's what we do in California. You probably have a similar procedure in Ohio. We file what's called a Pitchess motion. All right. Pitchess. And what happens is the judge will review the officer's personnel file in camera. So there's nothing getting disclosed. She is such a crummy lawyer. She's making up just specious, nonsensical arguments. There's a procedure in place to make sure that only relevant incidents that the officer may have been involved in that are substantially similar to the issue being argued in this case will come out into evidence. Do you have something similar in Ohio?
No, I don't think we have anything similar. We just have the basic motion to compel, you know, right. And for sanctions if they don't comply.
Right. Everybody's a little bit different.
It, Mike. I mean, this judge was very, very adamant that our Constitution was being violated by the prosecution. And she wouldn't really come out and say on purpose, but she says it doesn't matter. You've got an affirmative duty to have a procedure to get this, and you haven't done anything. So,
and Tony, I included your PolitiFact. And by the way, guys, I'm not a fan of fact checkers, but since PolitiFact is probably about as far left to the left as Karl Marx could be, and she's running on a left ticket, I think that there's some credence to this PolitiFact that you sent me. And what does it say, guys? That it says that Kamala Harris oversaw a police department, blah, 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 everything that Joe Biden said, and it came up is mostly true. So what do you have to say about that, Tony?
I think it's very true. And that the video I had not seen of that lady speaking about all these other crimes, you get them in bits and pieces on the internet. And like you say, you don't know if they're being suppressed, pushed to page.
They are
50. But anyway, Mike, it's been a pleasure for me. I'm getting about worn out, and it's been a real honor. anytime I get to do something with you, it's really a lot of fun. And we always, I know you do the work, and we both do the work to try to give something for people to listen to. That's
give me a bunch of ones for Tony.
Informative.
Give me a bunch of ones for Tony. Give me a bunch of ones for Tony. This is my good friend. I've been close friends. I consider him to be a dear friend since 2012. And I am so grateful that he's still alive and kicking, and that he's here to help share this information. Guys, you have to learn a little bit something about me. I have friends who are left, who are right. I don't discriminate. I look at your soul and your spirit. If you're a good person and you're full of love, that's the kind of person I want in my life. Give me a bunch of ones for Tony Castelli, my paisano, Tony Castelli.
All right. What's the matter you, baby? Hey, thanks again, Michael. We'll do this again soon, I hope.
Yes, sir. All right, guys. I'm going to stay and just kind of bid everybody adieu. You can see that I've lost some of my, it looks like I'm a little screwed up here with the photography. So everybody, make sure to double tap the screen, because that's how you do things in vertical. Make sure to save to your favorites to view later. Okay. Please always do that. That really helps me with the algorithm, love. And I'm going to try to do a show tomorrow night, guys, about the jury nullification. I have a really good video from a guy from, I think it's the 10th Amendment Foundation, who's agreed to allow me to do an attorney reaction video. It's an amazing video about jury nullification, the historical precedents behind it, and about how a jury does in fact have the right to decide the law and the facts, even though the administrative state only wants to allow the jury to decide the facts, which we know is not correct. And we're going to get into that. And look, I really want to thank my audience. I've been timed out for 7 days. I've been so hungry. I've been missing you guys. Been missing you, Kurt Bronson and Jeff and what's the matter, you, all you guys. I'm just so glad to be back, and I'm making plans for an alternative platform so we can still keep talking once the thought police finally ban me from this platform. And then Forrest Goodwin, and I just want to thank all you guys for your super chats and your donations to help me keep this channel going. I know you may not think that a couple dollars is a lot, but it means a lot to me because it shows that you appreciate me and all the effort that I'm trying to put in to this channel to help educate people and help share the joy and the passion that I have for the law and natural rights. And, we got some new people coming in. Emo Myers, Defund the Blue Ganji, all these guys. Age Go, what's the matter? You, April Rain, God bless you. Thank you for showing up. Mama Lion. I'm trying to get everybody. I hope I didn't miss anyone, guys, because I love all you guys, and I really sincerely mean that. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing these shows. So the more people I see showing up for the streams, the more motivated I am to come back and do these shows for you. And then NOJLAF and everybody. Also, again, give me a bunch of ones for Tony, for him coming on and spending his time today. Really good guy, super, super honest, honorable lawyer. I really appreciate him. So with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because you never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. And they want to. And they're trying. They just did for 7 days. So make sure to follow me. Make sure to go to the Ehline website. And if you think I'm giving good advice as a lawyer, make sure to give me some positive reviews on my Google business and Yelp. Help me out. Help me get clients so I can afford to keep doing these shows for you guys. And hopefully I could quit my day job and do this full time if you think I'm worth it. And then I'm looking for volunteers, guys. So anybody who can help me with a WordPress website, anybody who can help me with writing articles, anybody who can help me do that kind of stuff. I really need help. I need educated people to help get the word out, because I'm doing this all by myself. And I've got health issues. I just had a really, really bad kidney stone. I'm like, right now, I'm in a pain level of about a 13. I'm just dying, but I just really missed you guys so much. So again, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because you never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. Semper Fi, do or die. Do or die.